And now with our lesson, Tim Junkins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There was a woman sitting on a stage, and she's 90 years old, and her name is Noreen. And she's telling the story, or specifically a story from a kind of limited period of her life. Noreen, she was a BBC contributor back in the 60s and 70s. She was an author. She actually wrote a couple of wartime dramas, kind of like more romance than war, but you know, she was alive during World War II, and so she wrote these kind of like wartime romance novels, which you know is cool. When she was 18 years old, she was leaving her studies and she wanted to go work because when she was 18, it was right in the middle of World War II. And so she decided she wanted to go, kind of contribute towards the cause. And so her options were she could join the armed forces or she could join a munitions factory. She said neither of those options seemed really that great. So what she wanted to do was she wanted to join the naval service. And you got a picture of this sweet old lady, 90 years old, sitting on a stage. She explains that the reason she wanted to join the naval service is because she liked the hats. The hats were very fancy looking. And she decided like that was kind of her, it was just, her being kind of quippy about it. But she didn't join the naval service. She gets a job at the Ministry of Agricultural and Fisheries, if you can believe it. And throughout her employment there, her family members kind of chide her a little bit because the war is going on, and England is kind of at the center of it. Churchill was very involved in the war and things like that. And so her family members were like, you could be in a munitions factory right now. You could have gone into military service. And her family members and her friends, and they all kind of chided her a little bit. And, she just kind of took it all, like, with stride. And, she just worked. And she worked, and she, like I said, she wound up becoming a contributor for the BBC. She wound up becoming a journalist. She got married. 90 years old, she's sitting on the stage telling her life story. Now the question is, despite the fact that she was a contributor for the BBC and the fact that she was an author, what makes her story so unique? Now the thing that's interesting about Noreen, and what nobody ever knew until the year 2000, is that she was a secretary who worked for the SOE, which was a secret black ops government organization run by Winston Churchill, aptly named Churchill's Secret Army. It was the organization that first established kind of spycraft and warfare during World War II. It had such people working for them, such as Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond novels. The reason that those novels are so exciting, the reason that the movies are so great, is because Ian Fleming was kind of a spy, And so Noreen, while not a field agent, worked for this organization, and she trained operatives. And she would train them, she would run into them in a bar, and she would try and get them to talk, and try and get them to reveal secrets to see if they would be cleared for active field duty. And what's really interesting about her life, and is if you ever get the chance to listen to her recount these stories, they're really fascinating, because it was the bigger picture that Noreen had to kind of hang on to for 60 years. For 60 years, she had to attend Thanksgiving dinners, she had to attend Christmases, she had to go to friends' parties, she had to go to weddings, she had to go to all sorts of family events with the knowledge that she, under no circumstances, could talk about what she did during the war. And what's really heartbreaking about that are two really quick stories, because if I told her whole story, it would take way longer than a sermon. But two really quick stories is there's a story of her and an operative who was about to leave. And the operative, he was Jewish, and he gives her this necklace that says, I want you to have this. And she says, well, I can't take this, because, she's a young girl, she's 18, he's in his mid-30s. He says, all of my family was killed in the concentration camp. And I would like to know that while I'm out there, there is somebody that is thinking of me. And she took the necklace, and he never came back. And the other one is on the eve of her 19th birthday, she fell madly in love with an agent slightly older than her. And the agent is just top-notch. He's one of their best. And they dated for about 3 months, and he was leaving for a mission. And he told her, he said, this is going to be my last mission. After we're done, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm never going to leave you again. And they had a lunch, and they left. And the next night, after completing his task, he was captured. And he was never seen again. And not only did she lose him, she never got the closure of knowing what happened to him. There's no record, because none of this stuff is on the books. None of this stuff is historical record. These people are going out there and they're committing these acts of sabotage for the nation's security in order to defy themselves against Germany. And the reason that the story resonated with me so much is it gave me the idea of what it means to try and view the bigger picture. The fact that for 60 years she had to go to dinners, and she had to go to family events, and she had to spend time with friends. And you know when you have a really, really bad day at work, and you come home, and someone says, "How was your day?" You go, "Let me tell you all about it." And you begin recanting the story of how terrible your day was. And you get it off your chest, and you get flustered, and you maybe have a good cry about it, and then that's it. And she didn't get that. She got a medal in a velvet box and was told that she should be proud of him because he died a hero. And she looked that person in the eye and said, "I don't want a hero. I don't want a dead hero. I want him back." And so she had to go to those family events for 60 years and not talk about this. And so it kind of presents the idea of what is the bigger picture when it comes to our faith. We're going to be continuing the section that Tom read briefly out of Hebrews chapter 11. So that's the section we're going to be looking at today for Scripture. But just before we get to that, I really just want to digest the concept of what the bigger picture is. That life, and especially our faith, is not about the cog. It is about the machine. And it is not about the puzzle piece. It is about the picture. Our faith is about the larger concepts that exist in our world. The idea that there are those of the faithful who live their lives, and they live their lives for God. And the section we're going to be reading today discusses in very clear language that they were so faithful that they lived to the end of their days with their faith. And so what we're going to be looking at today is Hebrews chapter 11. We're going to be jumping ahead to verse 13. Because if you read Hebrews 11, it's a great chronology. It's a really great chronology that kind of demonstrates how these people throughout history, the history of our faith, the history of our planet, demonstrated their faith in really exciting ways. And I had it end on the Noah one because the Noah one is actually my favorite. Because I love the faith that Noah demonstrates. Because what a lot of people don't understand from the language of the Bible, unless you happen to read over that one sentence, is when Noah is working on the ark, he is working on the ark for years. And years and years and years. And so you have to imagine, like, you go out to this site every day. Like I work in the construction field. I don't work on job sites, but I work in dealing with job sites, and I have to visit them sometimes. And, you know, you go to a job site and you see a building, you go, "Oh, that's great. How long is that going to be done?" Like, "Oh, that'll be done in 6 months." Like they're building a Sonic restaurant down the street, which I'm very excited about. Everybody loves Sonic. They're building a Sonic restaurant down the street from my work, and that building sprouted up like a weed. It was like a pile of dirt and girders and glass, and then it seemed like the next week, boom, restaurants, you know, and because that's how modern construction works. Now you have to imagine a guy who goes out there for decades and goes out with his tools and just builds from sunrise to sunset. He goes out there every day and builds, and people come along and they stand there and go, "All right, Noah, where's the rain? It's got to be coming any day now. You look like you're getting close to finishing that boat. Where's the rain at?" And so, out of all the people that they talk about who demonstrate faith in Hebrews chapter 11, the section of Noah is especially resonant with me because it's an example of someone who had to deal with doubters every day while he practices faith. So the section we're looking at is jumping ahead to verse 13. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. Admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth, people who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. And we'll continue on reading on just a second. But just the idea that those who were living by faith, those who were practicing, those who were being faithful to God, who were living their lives every day in a godly fashion, lived so as strangers in the world, strangers in a foreign land. The idea that the things they did were so foreign to those around them that they did not feel at home. Have you ever been in a circumstance, social, work, otherwise, where you just didn't feel welcome, or you just didn't understand the lingo or the language that was going on around you? And that kind of uneasy feeling of like, I don't really fit in here. Like, I was that kid growing up. I didn't get people all that much. And I have my friends, and I have people I grew up with, and I'm thankful for all of that. But I'm just one of those people who, like, when I'm getting to know people, I'm trying to figure out the lay of the land, and I just feel kind of like uneasy about it at times. Imagine living your entire life in that mindset. The idea that you're never gonna quite get comfortable with the world. That's never gonna click. It's never gonna make 100% sense to you because you understand the bigger picture. You are kind of Noreen in this example of you have this knowledge. Now the difference is we can share that knowledge. Like, we are not held down by State Secrets Act. We have not signed documents saying that we will not talk about our faith for 60 years. That's one of the key differences. We have the opportunity to share our faith. But also with the understanding that not everyone is going to listen to it. And that it is only our responsibility to share that faith to the best of our ability. And so these people, they longed for a new place of being. They longed for a heavenly place. Continuing on, therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. And that last snippet is really important. The idea of understanding the bigger picture from a Christian perspective is that when God pushes us in a direction, when God communicates with us, when he wants us to be in a certain place at a certain time or take a certain action, the faithful thing to do is to follow through with that action. And the reason that the Abraham and Isaac example is so important is because it is so absurd. Like, from our perspective, from the worldly perspective, it is absurd. Abraham has been promised that through Isaac, like, the generations will continue. And now God has told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And so Abraham goes out, and he does it. And it was spoken about a couple of weeks ago during the communion message. The idea that he was so faithful that despite the circumstances, despite what was going on, that both of them followed through with it. Or they were about to follow through with it. Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. He demonstrated this ultimate test of faith, which, like, I talked about this in the youth class a number of years ago. The idea of, I had a brother and sister in the class, and I said, okay, I want you to sacrifice your brother. And they said, no, I can't do that. Why would I do that? Like, I love my brother, you know. And it's one of those things where, like, God looks at those who are able to follow through with that level of faith so that they may serve as an example to the rest of us. So that we may know, no matter what circumstances, because if you look at the circumstances of what the figures in the Old Testament had to go through and what their faith meant, it serves as an example, and it also proves that God will watch out for his people, that he will be there for us, that he will serve, that he will protect us as his followers. Because it says in the middle of the passage, therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. We have been prepared a place because of our standing with God, because we have chosen to follow him, because we have chosen to be part of the faithful. And being part of the faithful sometimes means understanding the bigger picture of what is going on. And that's a really tough thing for us to deal with as people, because we are so inside of our own heads 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's nights that you have trouble sleeping, the nights that those thoughts are firing off a mile a minute, the days that you're just a little too tired at work, that there's too much going on, there's too much stress, there's too many obstacles. How are we supposed to get through that as people? And the answer is by being faithful. Which, yes, on paper, being faithful sounds like a super duper easy concept. Yes, absolutely, sign me up for it. I will be faithful, and therefore I will be able to deal with any and all circumstances. Yes, sign me up for that. That sounds great, right? Let's just check those boxes, get those forms through HR, and let's do this thing. But being faithful is so much more than that. Being faithful is... And there's a couple of quotes pulled from this interview with this woman, Noreen, that I love. And she said that the agents, before going on their missions, they knew that they had a 50% survival rate. Imagine the number of people at your job. Imagine going to work every day and thinking that you have a 50% survival rate. A coin toss. Not loving those odds. I'm not a gambler, I don't know anything about statistics, but I know that a 50-50 shot is not great. And so she said that the agents were always scared. They were scared they would be captured. They were scared they would be tortured. They were scared that they would reveal information that would be detrimental to the cause. And the thing that she said is it's important to understand that brave men are always scared. Because bravery is not the absence of fear, but it is the willingness to act in defiance of fear, is how she phrased it. In the same way, our courage in dealing with our faith, it is all right to understand that there is a challenge. It is all right to understand that there are obstacles in your way, that there are things, that there are people, that there are barriers in our lives that attempt to prevent us from connecting to God. And it is all right to be afraid of those barriers. Because like she said, fear is not the absence of courage. Or courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to deal with it. And ultimately, the last quote I want to pull from this interview is, appropriately enough, it was the last quote she had before wrapping up for the evening. It was the very last thing she said, was that these agents gave up so much. They gave up their youth, they gave up their hopes and their dreams, because even when they came back, they were changed from their experiences. They had to give up so much from their lives, if not their own lives. And the last thing she said is that they gave up their today so that we could have our tomorrow. And in the same way, when we read stories from the Old Testament, when we read about what these people gave up, we read what these heroes of the Bible have gone through. You know, you look at the Old Testament, you look at the New Testament, you look at the martyrs, you look at the people who just put in the time. And so people like Noah went out every day and they built a boat. They built a really big boat. They built the biggest boat. Every day, sunrise to sunset. Because God told him to. And he knew that God was watching out for him. And so he went out and he put in the effort every single day. And his reward was he was spared from the flood. Because he put in the effort. He didn't slack off. He didn't cut costs on parts. He didn't try and underbid it on time. He took as long as it needed to. And that's the same way our faith works. Is when we communicate with God, we have to put in the time. And thankfully, and I mean thankfully, we are often not expected to lay down our lives for our own faith. We are not expected to stand in defiance of the world every day and put in the time while others stand beside and go, where's the rain? Where's the rain? You said it was going to rain. Is it going to rain soon? Thankfully, we have reached a point in our society that we could be free. I say it every time I pray. I say, Dear Lord, I thank you for the opportunity for us to freely gather together and worship you, Lord. Because we are blessed in that regard. In this place, in this time, in this country, we are extraordinarily blessed because of the sacrifices that have been made in the past. And it's important to understand that the big picture requires sacrifice. The big picture requires time. It requires effort. It requires something from us. Yes, we are baptized in the name of Christ. And yes, we have become Christians. And yes, we are part of a new body. But that is simply the beginning of our journey. Our journey continues from there. And I must continue in study and fellowship and prayer and thanksgiving and all of these things. And more often than not, we just need a reminder of that. And so I listened to this story on the radio a couple of weeks ago about this woman, this sweet woman, who was about the same age as my grandmother. And I just listened to her story, and I listened in stone silence because I couldn't believe what that sacrifice must have meant to her. The idea that she lost someone that she loved. And even though she moved on, even though she met the man that would become her husband, she said that it seems silly, but she still carries the photograph of Bill around with her at all times. A single photograph of what she called a cameo of perfect love. And she said, granted, it was probably perfect because it was so short. But it was one of those things that she carries around this photograph with her, just as a reminder of who she was, a reminder of the secrets that she had to hold on to. Because the way state secrets are designed is that by the time that you're allowed to talk about them, the people that can talk around them really aren't around anymore. And so, understanding the big picture is something that is important. And like I said in the beginning, faith is not about the cog, it is about the machine. It is not about the puzzle piece, it is about the picture. It is about the whole circumstance in which we are prevented and how we are contributors to that in our faith, but we are not the center of it. And in one regard, it kind of hurts to say that you're not the center of attention. I do apologize for those of you who really, really wanted to be the center of attention. But I hope that you understand what this being the center of attention means. The planning and the sacrifice and the pain and the requirements that go along with that. And so I am thankful to be part of the body of believers, and I am thankful to do my own small part of what I can to do to encourage you so that you may strengthen your own faith and you may in turn encourage others. If you're here today and you're part of that body of believers and you just need a jolt, you just need a sense of encouragement, you just need a sense of place and time, and you need to know that it's okay to be scared, it is okay to be weakened, it is okay to need. It is okay to be in that place, to know that we are here to encourage you to become strong again. So that in turn, when somebody else falters, when somebody else stumbles, you in turn can be there for them. It's important to know that as a body of believers that we are here for one another to support each other. If you're here today and you're not part of that body of believers, but you want to be, the waters of baptism are available. Today, right now, to be connected to such a body, to be connected to such a loving God who sacrificed everything. Because I talk about the trouble that a woman like Noreen went through. Imagine what it was for Christ. You grow up and you live your life and you do everything you're supposed to. And at the end of that, you get to be sacrificed for the whole of humanity. And you get to hang on to that knowledge for your entire life. Like that is a burden I wish on no man. But it had to be. It had to be so that we could be free from sin. It had to be so that we could be reconnected with God through his sacrifice. And so if you're here today and you want to be part of that, if you're here today and you are part of that, need encouragement, I ask you to meditate on these things as we stand and sing Song of Invitation.